Welcome to the Studio Chat podcast. My name is Barbara Thompson. Each week, I'll be bringing you a self-care expert or a message to help you to discover how to live your best life and understand your mind-body connection. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now, let the Studio Chat begin. Welcome back to the Studio Chat podcast. Today, I have Trina O'Duffy as my guest, all the way from Madrid, a holistic wellness coach and yoga teacher who has a business called My Collective Compass. Trina is passionate about gut health and wellness and really loves to inspire others to get to know themselves a little bit better and to find out what they need at that time, but also finding self-care tools to help them in the future. So welcome to my podcast today, Trina. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And you're in Madrid at the moment. So it is morning. The sun's coming up where you are and the sun's coming down where I am.
It is very strange, isn't it? But yeah, all the way over here in Madrid. So I'm looking forward to the sun shining, because that's the benefit of being in Madrid, is that the sun is out quite a lot, which is good. I love that.
Yeah, so do I. So today, I know that you're passionate about gut health and wellness, so I know that we're going to touch on a little of that today. And before we get started, I'd love for you to share with my listeners a bit about you.
Where to start? There's so much, I guess, that's taken me on my journey to where I am now. But as you said, I'm living in Madrid. I've just spent about 2.5 years living in Italy previously to this. And all of these things have sort of inspired me to get to where I am now. But whilst I was living in the UK, I was originally a dancer. Then I worked a lot in different industries. That led me to, I've always sort of been around wellness and holistic therapies, I guess, but I didn't sort of find my trajectory there for a little while. I've lived in Australia, obviously not when you were there, which is a shame. And I've traveled the world, and now I'm proud to say that I feel like all of the things that I've been working on are coming together, and I feel that my passion in life is making sense, and I am where I'm supposed to be, and everything that's happened before has got me to where I am now. Does that make sense? Yeah,
makes total sense. And I'm in a similar place, and I know what it takes to get to where you are. So I know all the work and all the trial and errors, all the stuff about our health and wellness and gut health. And, as a holistic health coach, it's all about finding what's best for you.
Yeah, 100%. And working through those challenges and building that resilience, I think, because it's not a linear journey, is it, to finding your wellness? There's never a full stop. It's always a continuous. And I think that's also something that I've learned along the way, is that we are allowed to evolve. We are allowed to change our minds. Our bodies change every 7 years. We go through different seasons, things that we want. I mean, just moving country, for example, like now I live in Madrid. When I got here, I was like, right, I'm feeling, pretty healthy, and, I feel good. And I got here, I was like, oh my God, I'm so thirsty all of the time. A little bit happened to me when I lived in Sydney as well, but it's so dry here in comparison to Italy, where I was, which is super humid. I go through like 4 liters of water a day. And I was like, oh, is there something wrong with me? And then I was like, oh no, it's just because that's what my body needs whilst I live here, especially when it's summer.
Yeah,
it's so hot.
Imagine. Yeah. And I guess over there, I actually haven't traveled over there, but do you drink bottled water or can you drink out of the tap?
You can drink out of the tap in Madrid, but I just don't particularly like the taste of the water. So that's part of the thing that I'm trying to work out at the moment, is the best solution. So I don't have to buy bottled water consistently, but I haven't found a solution yet. So I am basically drinking bottled water or filtered water.
Yeah.
I can use the tap, but it's just not my favorite.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. So I'd love to let's just dive into what is a health coach and what got you into doing what you do now?
Yeah. So a health coach for me is essentially when I partner with, and I like to call it a partnership or a mentorship. So when I work with people, I'm there as their accountability partner or their mentor or their guide to essentially help them get to where they want to be, which is, as we mentioned, these things can change, our priorities can change of what we're trying to work on. But someone might come to me for their gut health or for their health and wellness in general, and I'll help them set goals to achieve what it is that they're looking to achieve, but also give them they need to be listened to and heard as well. So it's a safe space for them to say, hey, this is what I'm feeling. I'll listen to them and help them work it out, because I believe that we all know the answers. It's just that sometimes we've been taught that we don't know the answers, or we've forgotten to listen to our bodies. So a lot of the work that I particularly do is to try and get people really in tune with what their bodies are telling them. So not just going through a checklist, but everyone's so individual. And I think it's allowing people to find what it is that they need. And health isn't just that one thing. So as a health coach, they might come to me for nutrition, they might come to me for gut health, but then all of those other building blocks, which I'm sure that the stress, the sleep, the movement, the relationships, career, all of those things we can work on, because all of those things make you who you are. And I'm with people on their journey to find themselves and find out what they need. So at the end of their journey with me, they've got the tools that they need, that they can always come back to say, okay, hang on, now I feel like this, something in my life has changed. How did I work with Trina on this? And they can go to their toolkit and think, right, do I need to do some more stress management? Do I need to have a massage? Do I need to go for Reiki? Do I need to use aromatherapy? Do I need to change something in my diet? Do I need to meditate? All of those types of things. And they build their resilience as they need to get through the challenges that are going to be constantly thrown in front of us.
It's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot when you work in this space, but it's a lot when you're someone that's just trying to live every day as best as they can. And sometimes they'll read a book or they'll watch something on YouTube and they'll be like, okay, that's it. But there's so much family traditions and values and culture and people's own perspective on that, on all of those aspects that you talked about. That whole stress affects sleep, affects hormones, affects how you feel, affects your gut, affects your brain, affects what you eat every day. If you don't have enough sleep, you eat sugar, even if you don't really like it, and there's a biological reason why. And all that stuff. And it's so fascinating. So I'm just guessing that what you do now as a holistic health coach, you said that you used to do a lot of dancing and that you've always been around health and interested in health. So I'd love to know a bit about your story and what you found, what got you diving deeper into these subjects and found yourself where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I was one of those, if I go all the way back in time, I was that kid at school, in England, I don't know what it's like where you were in New Zealand, but when you've got a cold and you've got a jumper on and you're literally going all the time, literally I had a cold.
Wiping your nose
wiping my nose, yeah. I was wiping my nose constantly. I had asthma from a young age, and my mum used to try all of these different things. So when I say I was introduced to holistic therapies at a young age, it was because my mum would take us to reflexology to help us with our asthma, or she would try and use batch remedies with us, or crystal healing, or various different things like that. And as I said, I always moved, but I ate. So I was a fussy kid, if you want to put fussy kids. So sometimes now I think, was I fussy, or was I sort of mimicking my sister, because she was allergic to a lot of things when she was young, a lot of things. So I was I didn't have many colourful things on my plate. So it was all sort of the same colour: white food, chicken nuggets, bread was obviously my favourite thing. I never liked butter. I never really liked cheese. or anything like that. And so there was a point where I got to about 14 years old where I had like this social pressure of like, you need to eat pizza with cheese on it. And I was like, oh God, like I hated it. I just really never liked it.
The texture or
And
the taste of it, or both?
I think all of it just was never a thing that I wanted. Like I liked yogurts and, I'd have milk on my, sugary cereal and all of those kinds of things. Yep. But cheese, I was just never drawn to it. And I think by the time I started eating it and I started sort of having even more, I would say, additional food to my diet, I think it took me about 4 years before my body first started to like give me huge warning signals, because I had acne really, really badly. I then, when I was 19 and I was training as a dancer, I had like a bout of, I just couldn't move. There was 3 days I couldn't dance. I couldn't get off the floor. My stomach was completely bloated. And, I had IBS. And this was the start of my journey to like going to the doctor saying I've got all of these different symptoms, and them saying, oh, that's weird. I'm not really sure what that is. I'm not really sure how we can help you. But there was no advice. And bearing in mind, that was when I was sort of between the ages of 14 and 19, which is
the tough years.
Tough years, in terms of like your self-confidence and how you're building yourself as a young woman. But also there was less awareness, I think, and less products available as well to change your habits. So I was already at that stage trying to have started having stomach massages and like ladies teaching me how to massage my stomach every single evening, because it's an area that we neglect in a way, to relieve the symptoms of bloating and various things like that. And then at the same time, because I was dancing, I started sort of moving more with the yoga and all of that kind of thing. So I started to I was putting these things into place, but I was still very much relying on, I don't know if you have it, Buscopan, which is basically a tablet that you take when you get really, really bloated and your guts sort of like in a knot. And so I used to...
Yeah. So it helps with wind and stuff, like trapped wind, and it's like... Yeah. Like the medicinal would be like peppermint or peppermint tea.
Peppermint.
It's in a tablet.
Yeah. So I started to introduce peppermint tea, obviously, but and I've got one here next to me now as I'm talking to you. It's one of my favorite things.
A bit like a stalker, that we haven't spoken about that, and here I am talking about peppermint tea, and then I just got goosebumps when you said I've got some here, and then I felt a bit creepy thinking, I'm not stalking you, don't worry, I can't see.
Yes.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So I was starting to implement things, and I was getting my stomach to a place where I thought it was getting better. And I realized along the way that I did have a slight intolerance to dairy. And I think there's, elements of, like, my sister also has a big intolerance to dairy, or she did when she was younger. So I decided at that point to sort of remove it from my diet a little bit and try and introduce at that time like goat's milk and various things like that. And so that kind of went on for a few years where I was sort of just trying to maintain. I still had all of the symptoms, no doctors were helping. I was just trying all of these different things. And then, I know this sounds a bit weird, but I had like a big event in my life where I was married, and then the marriage ended and he left, and I was in that place where, you don't eat sort of thing for 2 weeks. And I'm the
opposite. I'm the opposite. I go the other way. So most of us, either when we're under a lot of stress and duress, we don't eat. And then there's some of us like me, I'm at the other extreme where I eat for comfort. So, but I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, my body sort of just shut down completely. But I realized when I sort of came out of the fog of shock, that because I hadn't really been eating that much, I hadn't had any sort of dairy or any stomach issues. And I just sort of, for a moment, like reflected, and I was like, oh, I actually feel much better, because there were periods where I was just like, well, I'm just going to eat ice cream. I'm just going to eat this. I'm just going to eat that. That's fine. I'll just do this. And then after those 2 weeks, I was like, even though I feel mentally and emotionally unstable, my body actually feels not so bad, even though I dropped weight, which was, I wanted to obviously put that back on, but I did feel better. So I thought, I'm going to try and cut this out more permanently and see how that makes me feel. Anyway, I kind of then moved over your way. I went on sort of an exploration. I gave up everything in my life. And at that point, even though the dairy and my gut issues were still something that I was working on, the thing that overtook was the yoga. And I came back to that. So it had sort of been interplayed in my life in different ways because of my dance. I used to go with my mum, but I had to find a way to mentally be well. And I was all over the place, and I didn't know what I was doing or how to get back to what I now would call my baseline. And I suppose, at the time, I didn't really know. So this is when I was 27, so I'm 36 now. So a fair while ago, where I was trying to understand what this is like. Why is my mind racing? How do I get it to calm down? And so whilst I was in Australia, I had a huge panic attack in the house that I was living in Sydney. And I had, I was on the other side of the world. I couldn't call anyone because I thought, well, I've only just met all of these people. If I call them while I'm having a panic attack, they'll think I'm insane. I can't call home because they can't get here. And then I found maybe you'll laugh. I know that you've got a dog. I went out into the garden and my housemate had a cat. And I literally just sat with the cat, just breathed with the cat and just calmed myself down and realized that I needed to find a way to regulate my breathing in that moment. And I needed to find a way to help myself stabilize. So I started to increase my yoga practice. And I started going to different studios in Sydney and finding different teachers. And it kind of just led me on this journey to find my spiritual way, as it were. So for me, as I said, movement was always a huge thing in my life. And I think I pushed some of it out while I was, doing the 9-to-5 job and all that kind of thing. So coming back to the movement aspect of yoga, when I put the mat out, no matter where I was at that point when I was traveling, if I was on a mat, didn't have to be my mat, just on a mat, I could come back to myself. And I was learning that so many things were calming in my mind whilst I was doing yoga. So obviously yoga is not just the movement. There's so many aspects to it. And so that was my initiation, I guess, which sent me on my journey to eventually train as a yoga teacher when I came back to the UK. But I had sort of like a mishap, should we call it, in between, where I was traveling between Malaysia and Vietnam. And I was on an aeroplane and I just started to feel not very well whilst I was on this aeroplane. And I was like, oh, that's strange. And I managed to meet this girl and I didn't know who she was. And she said, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I just, I kind of just feel a bit strange. And then I went to my hotel because I thought I'll treat myself to a hotel because it wasn't that expensive in Vietnam as opposed to staying in a hostel. And thank goodness I did, because I met this girl, this stranger, for dinner that night. And then I suddenly started coughing up blood. And I was like, what? I was like, this is very unusual. I was like, what is going on? And then, cut a long story short, I ended up in hospital, not understanding what on earth was going on.
In Vietnam?
In Vietnam. And I had, and I had pneumonia. And I was like, how weird is this? Like, why do I have pneumonia? Where has this come from? And I think it was like, if I reflect on it now, I just think it was all of this culmination of my diet for a long time, the stress of everything that I'd gone on, all of these things that I was trying to do. My body just suddenly went, no, like, you have to stop. And then after that point, obviously they put me on loads of antibiotics and my gut was still not excellent. it was much better than it was because of all of these things that I'd implemented, the massage, the peppermint tea. Like I was having far less,
flare-ups,
like IBS, flare-ups, that's the word, thank you. However, the antibiotics just
smashed it.
It took me back, just took me back to square one, essentially. So by the time I eventually got back to the UK from my travels, I went back to the doctor again. Same thing. What's wrong with you? I told them this again. Oh, that's strange. I'm not really sure how. Oh, that's weird. I'm not really sure why the antibiotics would do that. I can't really think of anything that could help you. I think it's just something that you have to deal with. So not only did I have, like, I was on asthma medication for my whole life. Oh, you can never get rid of asthma. I had all of the allergies, allergic to outside, cats, dogs, trees, grass, dust, pollen, everything I was allergic to. So I was on antihistamines every single day. And then I have IBS. Oh, nothing you can do about it. And at that point, I was just like, no, I have to fix this myself. So that's when I really, really dove deep into healing my gut, which I managed to do by all of the ways, like removing things, repopulating, changing the way that I was eating, and all of my IBS symptoms disappeared. Like everything just went away. I added all of the fermented food. I mean, it was a journey. It wasn't overnight. I had to be consistent with it. And then I was like, great, like that's excellent. Like I've done really well. Like I don't have any symptoms. And then I was still on all of my medication though. So I was still on all of my asthma medication and allergy medication. So cut to me living in Italy and having moved there and started to implement. I mean, the food is just different. And where I was is where all the lots of volcanoes. So the soil is really nutrient dense. Like I've never tasted. I don't know if you've ever eaten a fig. Have you ever had and when you eat them in the UK, I don't know what they're like over there. It just sort of tastes like nothing. It doesn't taste of anything interesting. There's no flavor. You're just like, oh, this is an interesting texture. I know that it's probably, maybe this is what it tastes like. So you just sort of, that's that. It wasn't, just never blew my mind. The first time I ate a fig in Italy, I was like, is that what a fig tastes like? It was as if I was a child experiencing taste of something for the first time. It was just like the polar opposite to what I had eaten in the UK. Even like the tomatoes, the peppers, and like this will make you laugh, because maybe when we moved from Italy to Madrid, my boyfriend's very much, he'll go to the fruit, like the fruit shops as opposed to the supermarkets to buy fruit and vegetables. And he'll go in, he'll say, can I taste the tomato? Sure. And he'll have no, not having that one. Not having that one, because he's got such a palate for what a tomato should taste like for him personally, that he's very, very particular about what ones he will buy and what ones he won't buy. So I was getting all of these different nutrients from the plants. And as I mentioned, I wasn't really a vegetable eater when I was a kid. And, they got to a point where obviously I started eating everything, because I made a choice as well. I made a choice, right, I have to eat this because, this is just silly that I'm not eating all these things. So I was at this point already eating vegetables, but the amount and quality and diversity that I could get in Italy, already I started to feel better.
What kind of can I ask, sorry to interrupt, a lot of my clients, a lot of my listeners I know, and maybe your clients too, do struggle to eat the variety, or struggle when they haven't had fruit and vegetables in their life, really. When you ask them, can you add more in, they don't really know how or what. So I'd love to know, what did you eat in Italy? What fruits and vegetables did you eat that tasted amazing?
They have a lot of, sometimes I don't know the words in English, but they have lots of green leafy vegetables. So there's this particular one that's my favorite, called, in Italian, it's called escarola. And I think in I don't know if it's just called, I don't know what it is. It's like escarole. I'm not 100% sure, but it's a leafy vegetable, and you cook it with olives, garlic, olive oil, whatever, pine nuts, maybe anything that you want. And it's slightly bitter, but it's amazing. That's one of my favorites. They have lots of different varieties of broccoli. So I don't know about in Australia, I'm guessing it's the same that in England and America, it's all about kale.
Yeah.
So in Italy, they have kale, but they also have all of these other things that are within that family. So lots of spinach. They eat a lot of like beetroot chard, not just beetroots, but the actual like leaves. And there's so many different types of cabbage. So I was eating so many different types of cabbage. They call it berza, which I think is more our normal cabbage. So now I get confused with the names of vegetables.
Yeah, what I like to share with my clients too is the taste and the quality of when you look at eating fruits and vegetables. I think the reason why in the Western world, a lot of us in New Zealand, Australia, UK, we don't eat enough is because it doesn't taste particularly that nice. But when you spend a bit more money and you get organic, you don't have to get organic everything, but the things that are best to get organic, especially with dark leafy greens and stuff, I really taste the difference. And that's
100%.
That I actually invest my money in now is make sure every week, like today I get two different types of greens every week, and I got a bit of rocket and a bit of cos lettuce and stuff, and I'll just mix it all together and eat it. And that's something that it has to taste okay. You can't, sometimes it's medicinal. So sometimes when you've never eaten vegetables and you do need to eat vegetables, but I'm so fascinated by what type of vegetables you ate in Italy, because that was the time that that everything was changing for you.
Yeah, so it was changing my because the more vegetables that I was eating, because for the first 8 months I lived with my boyfriend's family, and his mum would just churn out all of these vegetables. So aubergines, peppers, all like different colours and types of broccoli, cauliflowers, and very seasonal. So she'd go out every single day and buy the vegetables that she wanted. And then she would also, and I still get her to send me packages, so she makes her own sort of fermented vegetables. So pumpkin, aubergine, zucchini, tomatoes, like all dried, all sort of in oil, all of this fermented stuff. So you're having that all of the time. And there was just such an array. I mean, obviously you've got the ones that people eat most of the time, the same as us. I get like peppers, zucchini, mushrooms, like all of those. And what's this one? I can't remember. That there's like another really, really bitter. There's a really, really bitter dark leafy green, but it's the way that they cook it. Like you said, exactly as you said, that I was like, oh, that's quite nice. If I had that in England just as a boiled vegetable with a bit of salt, it wouldn't be as interesting for me. Whereas the way that they cook it in Italy, and obviously she was taking quite a lot of time to cook it as well and prepare it. And there was a lot of love going into it and a lot of thought. And so then when she realized, oh, Katrina likes this, Katrina likes that, she'll then just give it to me all of the time. And I was just eating all of these vegetables and I loved it. Oh. And it changed my palate as well. So the more I had of that, the less sugary stuff that I wanted. Obviously, in Italy, there's a lot of pasta, there's a lot of pizza. I was in the land of where pizza was invented in Napoli. So, that was very nice. But
they also have, isn't it? It's authentic, and their pizza ingredients are maybe 3 or 4 ingredients, where our ingredients is 50. There's 50 ingredients on a pizza, but in Italy there's 3 or 4 ingredients.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, because at this point I'm still not having dairy, everyone's, oh, how do you cope with not having dairy when you're in Italy, especially with the pizza? But the original pizza was a margherita and a marinara doesn't have cheese. So I was like, this is the best. Whereas if you're in England, it's like asking for a pizza without cheese. They were like, what? Now, however many years on, it's more sort of people are more aware and they're used to people not having cheese. But it was all of these different things that started these building blocks for me my palate was changing even more. And during the pandemic, I was training to be a health coach because I wanted to start to share sort of my knowledge and my passion. So I already was doing the yoga and I wanted to help people to feel better. I wanted to help people to get to where I was. But as I was sort of doing my training, I thought, I'm still taking all of my medication. I wonder if there's a way of me, because I've changed so much, I wonder if there's a way of knowing whether I need all of this medication. Bearing in mind, I'd been 20 years on antihistamines, like every day. Like if I met your dog in real life at that point and put it in my face, I'd probably start sneezing or my eyes might go and I'd have to get used to the dog. Or if I was in sort of a really moldy environment, I'd still get like all of the symptoms. And I thought, okay, let me start to look at my inflammation in my diet. And I hadn't really thought of inflammation. Nobody had ever spoken to me about it. Everyone was just like, you've got these things, that's who you are, that's it. You'll have to be on this for the rest of your life. And it was just starting to question it. So I started to add even more things. So from the UK as well, I'm not sure how it was for you. In the UK, we're not really, especially in my family, can't speak to the whole of the UK, obviously. We didn't have a lot of like legumes, like beans or lentils. It wasn't like a huge thing in our diet, whereas in Italy, it is a huge thing. It's part of their natural diet to have all of those kinds of things. So back in the day, during the war, after the war, when things were tough, and that's when they were having more pastas and things were changing in how they ate. My boyfriend's mum said her family, and then latterly her, more often than not, were vegans or plant-based, like accidentally, just because they couldn't afford to buy eggs as much, or they couldn't afford to buy the fish, or they couldn't afford to have the meat. So they would still have it, but just not every single day for every single meal. So they would have many more of these beans and pulses like within their diet. And so whilst I was there, it also taught me to eat some more of these foods. But I was terrified of them because of the IBS and the gut. I was like, oh no, is it going to make me more gassy? Everyone says it makes you more gassy. I've never, I don't really know how to cook them. And then I was just like, no, I do not have a problem with beans. I do not have a problem with lentils. And I just mentally made a choice that I did not have a problem. And then from that point on, I had no issue. I've had no issue eating them. So I just changed my mind. Obviously, my gut was in a really healthy place at this point, and I wasn't having any flare-ups. But I knew that if I thought I would have a problem, I probably would have a problem, because all of the yoga and all my mindset stuff that I work on taught me that, what you think, you also you become. So I was like, right, I do not have an issue. This is absolutely fine.
What you eat, you become. What you think, you become. And I learned too, and I was exactly the same as you. I can't speak for all Kiwis, but in my family, especially in the 80s, my family weren't healthy at all. It was pretty much chicken nuggets and pizza and whatever was on the table, no gourmet food in my household. Mm-hmm. But there were no beans and stuff, or baked beans. Baked beans were the only
baked beans, 100%.
That were going around. Everyone would laugh because it'd make you fart, and as kids that's all funny, blah blah blah. But now with what I know, and through my studies and my own health journey, and trying to get a diverse range of foods in to really build my gut strength up and to build my palate up, the more good you eat, the more good you feel, the more good you want. I buy all organic lentils and stuff, and I'm not a great cook, but I learned that you've got to soak them for amount of time as well. So it's how you prepare. Just because a bean or something is organic and is the highest quality, how do you cook that bean for you? Do you soak it? Do you ferment it? And what oil and oils? Oh my gosh, that's a whole nother thing with people not understanding. Like, again, reading labels of foods and reading, is butter just butter? Is olive oil just olive oil? Because like, I went to the supermarket today and I just, out of curiosity again, through half a dozen olive oil bottles, I spun them around and read the ingredients. Only 2 of them had olive oil in them. Like, they were all olive oil, but it was olive oil with some chemical name next to it. So olive oil with this other oil. And I was like, this is how people are getting trapped.
Yeah.
And just all the different oils that do damage to your gut and actually make you really unhealthy. Again, the Italians, they just use, I know that heavy-handed with olive oil, but also heavy-handed, I'm sure, with any other oils that you saw when food was getting prepared?
I mean, they do, because obviously things have changed, like, you know, with the way that, you know, process things. So they do have, if you go there, if you go out for the day, they do actually have quite a lot of fried food as well, which is interesting because you don't necessarily associate that with the Mediterranean diet. So when I talk about the Mediterranean diet, I talk about more the diet that you would have at home as opposed to the one where you're out maybe in a restaurant, because there's definitely trattorias or osterias that cook traditionally, but then you've still got, like, they do use sort of like peanut oil and things like that to fry certain stuff. But my boyfriend's family, and what we use is just extra virgin olive oil, and then I'll use like coconut oil for certain things, or depend. There it was difficult to get certain different things, but I remember I'd have coconut oil and I'd start to cook something and my boyfriend's mum would come up to me and say, "Que cosa fai? What are you doing?" So what is this coconut oil? Because for her, she was like, that's a new thing that she wouldn't, that she doesn't travel, she hasn't traveled the world, she's traveled to different places, but coconut oil is not necessarily something she would know about. So she uses her extra virgin olive oil, and the quality of it, like you say, over there is so important. And when we moved to Spain, because we didn't know what's the right oil to get here whilst we were still, you know, finding our feet and working all of that out, my boyfriend's mum would send us oil.
Good. Yeah, that's
so she'd send us fermented vegetables and oil and coffee.
Oh, coffee. Yes. Can we quickly just talk about Italian coffee? Because I've always wanted to go to Italy, and now we're having this conversation all about food, and obviously it's nearly my dinner time, but food and coffee, what is their coffee like?
So if you bear in mind, I'm 36. I've been with my boyfriend for 6 years. Up until that point, I didn't drink coffee.
Yeah.
So when I met him, I didn't drink coffee, and it wasn't a health choice. It was just because every time I had it, I was like, I just didn't like it. Even when I lived in Australia, everyone was like, "This is the best coffee in the world." I was like, "Oh yeah, I just don't like it. I just didn't like it." And then when I first had a Napolitan Italian coffee, I was like, "Oh, this is lovely."
Is it?
And they have it.
So, I mean, like just a short black or something.
Yeah, it's an espresso, and it's like literally, you know, like I know no one else can see my hands, what I'm doing, about an inch or so, and it's
shot.
It's a shot, and the texture of it is thicker. It's not watery. Like, they make it in a slightly different way. I heard a chef say the other day, a Neapolitan chef say it was because of the volcanic water in Napoli that made the coffee different, but I'm not sure if that's the case. But we use Kimbo Napolitan coffee, and we make it, even like here, we make it in the little machine where you put it on the hob and it warms up, and so that's also excellent. But if you go to the coffee shop and it's 90 cents for espresso, and then you sit, you know, and they give you that, and you have a little chat. You see all these people in this communities, like just relaxing and enjoying their coffee and having a chat. I've never seen so many people have a chat over such a small, you know, coffee, or they can just be on their way, but they always have to have a coffee. So even if they're rushing to get somewhere, they're like, "Oh, no. I take my coffee first. I need to have my espresso, and
Is it
like
scalding
literally,
hot or is it warm?
yeah, it's warm. Yeah, it's warm. And so you have to, like, for me, I'm quite sensitive, so I have to, because the cups are also warm sometimes, so I have to wait a second. But it's a very big part of the culture, and it tastes so good. And I said, it's not my, I said, I don't believe this is my fault, but I've become a coffee snob. I was like, and it's because of my boyfriend's Italian. I've lived in Italy, and then I came to Spain, and everyone said the Spanish coffee is so good. And I was like, there's only one coffee shop that I go to in the whole of Madrid.
Nothing
That
wrong
is,
with having taste, like nothing wrong. Again, you're doing what feels right for you and your body. Like, don't ever apologize.
yeah,
It means you've got standards and you've got taste and you've tasted the real thing. Like a lot of us
yeah,
around the world are eating food that's not food. And that's why
yes,
that's
yeah,
like the pillar of everything around us. That's why we have anxiety. Part of the reason why we have a lot of anxiety and depression, why we can't sleep, why women are so infertile, why women can't have kids, why people have stomach issues, why people like, I can't even, like skin, eczema,
yeah,
allergy, like all sorts of things, right? Is because our bodies
yeah.
are consuming things that every time it goes into our body's like, huh? What? What is
Yeah,
this?
it's
What
trying
is
to
it?
work out what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And our bodies are so intelligent, and our bodies are so resilient. Like, they want us to be well. They'll do as much as they can. You're eating all of this stuff day after day, these ultra processed, or I was listening to someone who calls them Franken foods, which I quite think is quite an interesting term, because it's like, it's just not even food. Some of the things that we have is just created from a lab, and it doesn't even resemble food. And our bodies are trying their hardest to process all of this stuff. But I think, like, for me, and and lots of my clients, they have all of these symptoms, like you say, that they might not necessarily consider, oh, that's to do with what I'm eating, like the acne or the brain fog or the anxiety, the connection between the gut and the brain. There's not as, or like the allergies, for example. Who knew that if I changed my diet, removed all of the inflammatory foods, that I would be not on medication anymore? Then someone told me that I would have to be on inhalers and antihistamines for the rest of my life. Now I take nothing. And some people would judge me, oh, why are you eating that? Or why don't you just do this? And I think, well, I'm at this stage where I'm not taking any medication. If I want to have something, whatever it is that I want, it doesn't rock me. Whereas if one consistently eats those ultra processed foods, eventually your body just goes, no, I can't do it anymore. It might give you like a little warning sign. It might give you a little rash or a spot, or it might, do something, and your body's talking to you. And I think that's the most important thing about my journey, is that I've like paused and listened to it, using all of the techniques that I had learned along the way. Like I said, it's not a short journey, is it, to get there? And you're learning different things every day, and your body changes every day. Like at the start of my yoga class, or like during my yoga classes, imagine that you're doing like a balance exercise, and you can see the frustration on people's faces, where they're like, oh, but I could balance yesterday, and this morning, like, I can't balance. And I said, it's okay. You're a different body today than you were yesterday. Like, the things that you need today are maybe different. Maybe you're hormonal, or you're just feeling slightly differently. Like, be kind to yourself. Listen to what your body's asking of you, as opposed to what you can normally do, or what your ego thinks that you should, in inverted commas, be doing, or what society is telling you to do. It's about tuning. For me, it's about tuning inward.
And that's where that's where yoga comes into play, because I've done yoga a few times, and it's interesting we're having this conversation, because it's something I want to add back into my daily practice, because I got really good, and that's my ego speaking, but I'm not the type that will ever do the headstands and all that stuff. I'm the most unflexible person you'll ever meet, because I've had a background of lifting weights and not stretching. So, but the thing about yoga I loved is no matter how big your ego is, it puts you right back to being humble. Like when I first started yoga, like I can do most things. My athletic ability is pretty good, but yoga was such a good centering thing to do, because even the instructors sometimes would be like, oh, I can't do this. And they've done yoga for a long time. And the cool thing about that practice is within a particular type of movement, there's so many different variations. And within those variations, it depends on our body, our length of our arms. It depends our flexibility. It depends how we feel on the day. And that's what I loved about yoga. It was something that you'd leave your ego at the door. You just do what you could. Yeah. And that's what I used to say when we used to struggle. The teacher used to say, it's okay to rest, or it's okay to relax. And I'd lie there going, I feel like the naughty kid in the class, because, what's that position? Is it Savasana? And I'll never forget the first time after a 90-minute practice. It was a beginner class. We did 90 minutes and then we laid down. I'd never heard anything about yoga or Savasana or anything. And she's like, lie down. She got the bolster underneath my knees. And I lay there, and literally I was like, there was some chemistry flowing. I could feel the energy in my body, and I just lay there and I was like, shit, this feels like I'm in a day spa. This feels really good. And then she came and did the massage, and I was like, oh, I'm done. Like, holy. And then she did the sound bowl thing. And then I could feel that, when I'm going to get all the terminology wrong. So sorry for the yogis that are listening, but you know how you've got the sound bowl and you go around the top of it, and it, I could feel all that in my
vibration.
body. I could feel that going through my entire body. And remember, this is my first ever time doing yoga. And I felt this energy, and I was like, whoa. And then all of a sudden I felt like a different from that day, I felt like a different human. But it was amazing.
Because it's in the sound bowls and the vibration, because we're made up of water, like in our bodies. Water and sound has the ability to change the water around you and the water inside you. So depending on the frequencies as well of the sound bowls, or if you're having gongs, like certain people will respond to different gongs in different ways, and it just resonates. And like you said, it's incredible for you to have that as your first experience. That's amazing. I love that.
But again, like what you were talking about, my experience has all been, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then my gut, I had an anxiety and panic attack that saved my life. And it was something that I had to realize that I need to stop being around certain types of people. And when my body gave me my warning signs, I listened to it, and then thank goodness I did. But through that made me listen to, maybe I need to look at food, because I was sick of getting food plans off people. I was sick of weighing my food all the time. I was sick of doing the bodybuilding diet for over 25 years. I ate like that. And it was just really unhealthy and I was really miserable, and it just gave me so many disordered ways of how I viewed my body, and disordered ways of food and what I thought was nutrition wasn't. And that's why I enrolled myself and thought, no, I'm going to learn everything. And still to this day, I'm always learning about food. And that's what blew my mind about inflammation and about things. But just like you, I had a moment in my life which was like, okay, I'm listening to your body. Okay, cool. And again, it's just stepped every day, every week. I'm learning something new about my body, and I'm not perfect. I'll never be perfect. And I have some days where I will eat some like naughty food. Everyone's like, oh, you can't do that. But what it does is it gives me joy. There's some things that really bring me joy, but then also I'll just add more medicinal stuff the next day, or I'll even just writing. I'm a really big believer. I'd love to hear what you think of this. Writing down what you eat, not as a form of being good or bad, but a form of that biofeedback of, I've got a rash on my arm, or my periods aren't regular this month, or, I'm 42. I feel like I say that every day, because I'm always in my podcast and we're always talking about our bodies and our health, and it's just something that comes up. But I feel like I get sick of saying, like, people don't want to know how old you are, Barbara. But in that sense, my periods are so every month, no pain. They are literally now, touch wood, I just don't want to jinx it, but every month I get it, I go, thank you so much, I'm so grateful I've still got it. And every month, like perfect, every month no pain, every month there's not an issue.
That's incredible.
It's amazing, but it works.
Yeah,
I worked to get to that, and then I worked to help my gut health and my mental health, but I listened to my body. So a couple of weeks ago I was having organic eggs, really loved them for breakfast, was really enjoying them, and then all of a sudden for about 2 weeks I just had really bad gas and really sore tummies, and I was like, that's the eggs. Cut them out completely. Had a bit of a morning about them, like, oh my God, I can't eat eggs again. And then this week I've started to introduce them slowly. It's cool. So you know what I mean? You listen, people always get, oh my God, I can't eat this again, or I'm going to have no life, I have to eat boring food. But I think
that's a really interesting thing as well, is the association with healthy being boring as well, because I think, like, I enjoy cooking, but I don't think I could say I'm as good as my boyfriend at cooking. Like, he's got this natural ability to like put flavors together. It's sort of one of his natural talents. But if you make it tasty, it doesn't have to be boring, and it doesn't have to, and you can eat, there's so many different types of food as well, that you don't have to eat the same thing every single day. I think as humans, we're quite habitual, aren't we? And we tend to want to have the same things all the time, which is actually when I had my first bout of like proper paralysis, can't move because my stomach was in such a state, was because I was having, those mini Weetabix with like chocolate. They're like mini Bix or something like that. I was having them every single day before ballet, and I think that was the thing that knocked me out. But like you say, I don't write down my food every single day, because I always remember what I've had for some reason, or I'll always I have a relationship with my mum where if I say, oh, this thing is happening, she'll say, oh, well, what did you eat? And I'll be able to recall it. But I do think if you can't recall it, it's really useful to write it down. As I'm getting older, I definitely write more stuff down than I used to. But the same thing in terms of hormone levels and hormone balance. I was also on the pill since I was 15 years old. So when I was coming off all of my medication, I felt so that I was on an even keel, and all my allergies had gone, and I'd come off all of this stuff. And because when I came off the antihistamines as well, my body went into overdrive. Like, I started itching because your body's suddenly, trying to detox almost off the tablets.
Yeah.
So once I'd gone through all of that, I thought, like, maybe now is the time to come off the contraception. And so I did that. And now it's interesting because I monitor like my temperature and things like that. And when I change countries, like my body, like living in 40 degrees, like it's very difficult to always know what your baseline temperature, because I have quite a low one. But generally speaking, I don't have, like you, I don't have any pain. I have less flare-ups. If I do have a flare-up, I'm like, okay, what is going on? Is it my food? Is it my stress? Do I need to walk more? Have I gone outside today? Have I been on the computer too? Like what? Because that, like we said, like nutrition is such a big part of it. I really do believe that. But then there's all of those other elements, like, am I sleeping well? Or am I, thinking about work? Or do I need to just calm? Am I doing stuff for myself? And it's building that resilient toolbox, isn't it, to listen and know exactly what it is that you need, and that accepting as well, like you said with the shavasana at the end, like when I ask people, give yourself permission to rest, like give yourself permission to just be, because we're so used to going and going and going and going, that our bodies, like I said, I believe are resilient, and they're trying to, fight to keep us alive. And we don't necessarily thank them as much for, thank you for functioning in the way that you are and being grateful. But I think rest is so much more important than we realize, because when you're learning a new skill, or when you're taking in information, or you're just around different things all of the time, if you actually pause, you're more likely to take the information in and assimilate it and understand what it is, and your body take what it needs and leave what you don't want, and all of those kinds of things. But if you just keep going and you just power through, then your body doesn't have as much time to absorb. And I think rest and sleep is also something so vital to helping us, maintain those hormone levels, maintain the stress, and even just process the nutrients that we're eating as well. Because if we're not sleeping or resting, our bodies don't have time to take it all in, do they? So
yeah,
it's like,
I think when we power through, that's a great mechanism for blocking out life and blocking out things we don't want to deal with. So, when you said you just had to sit with yourself, and when you had those couple of moments where your body stopped, we all get those moments. And you know what? There may be some people out there listening to this that can have an iron stomach, can eat what they want. Two things are happening there. One is they've had symptoms for so long that most people don't know what it feels like to feel good in the morning with no aches and pains, no skin issues, no mood fluctuations, and there's some people that don't have anything, and may not have anything. So how you meet the people that are 101, smoked every day, a packet a day, had whiskey every day, ate crap every day, and they're really healthy. Some people can do that, so it's all about checking in and seeing this. What I mean, you've got to, at each season, like physical season, as in weather, but also your body season every 7 to 10 years when it changes, watch inflammation, and that vegetable you can eat now, just because someone says it's healthy, it may not be healthy for you.
Exactly. And I think I've heard you say this before, and this is how I work with my clients, is you're bio-individual. We all have different bodies. We all have like ancestral cultural lines that are different, things that we've been brought up with that are different, and we're built differently. So not only do you have to maintain that and understand how you're growing, how you're developing, what is it that your body needs, but it's also it's okay that my body is different to your body, and what I eat is not necessarily right for you. And I consistently say that to my clients. This is what I do. That doesn't mean that's right for you. But I think, generally speaking, if we eat more whole food, unprocessed food that it is what it is, and there's the least processed, or the process is more of a natural one, I think across the board probably people will be healthier. But then within that, those nuances are, I might want to eat lentils and they may not work for you, or you might eat a beef steak and I don't want to have that today, or you might eat eggs for 2 weeks and then suddenly, oh no, I don't want to eat eggs, something's not right. And you just listen to that, and it's making those changes and accepting we're all different and that you are different, and just listening to yourself on a day-to-day basis.
And I think anyone listening to this right now will be like, I just don't have time. Like, this is really overwhelming. And the thing is, your body will make time one day. So maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, 5 years time, something will come up. And even when it does, I want you to listen to it. So that's life. We're humans. We're not made for perfection, but we're made to really start tuning in with how do I feel, and just being kinder to yourself is a massive. And stress is huge across your body, because both of them, how you talk to yourself, your inner voice, and how your stress levels are. Even if you ate the perfect diet, there's no such thing as a perfect diet, but non-inflammatory foods, heaps of fruits and vegetables, you're nailing it. If you talk to yourself like in a real crappy voice, in a real crappy way, and you have a really stressful life, that's going to put a blanket over everything, and it's going to cancel everything out and make you sick. So everyone's like, oh, I can't. But it's, again, our body is born to do certain things. It's born for us to, all it is trying to do is bring us into that homeostasis, which is balance. So what that means is we're not in fight or flight. We're in the rest and digest, like we're cool. We're just, And all of us don't, because we're actually not made to do the things we're doing today. So it's such a, and the thing is, there's no 8-week program, there's no 12-week program, there's no how many calories a day, or what should you be eating on a plate. I think it's best to take everything into your own hands, be your own advocate, understand food, understand your body, and do what you feel like doing. Because as holistic health professionals, we can help people to a certain point, but we're not in your body. And if something doesn't feel right, you need to listen. Like you were like, like your body gave you a big stop sign, especially coughing up blood. Like, you need to look. You need to pay attention. And I'm sure, I'm confident most of us have, and who are listening, have had a moment in their life, something similar happening, where it's like, okay, right, what do you need me to do? What do you need?
And I think that what you said is that, what is it that your body's asking? And again, with the yoga, with the clients that I work with, I say on a regular basis, you know yourself better than anybody. I can give you, I can say, try to do, let's do this modification, do this, do that. But if you don't want to, and you want to sit in child's pose, I'm not going to be offended. If you want to go off and do shavasana for the whole of the class, I'm not going to be offended. I'm offering you to work through a sequence, but at the end, you know your body better than anybody. And it's learning how to, remembering to listen to that, because I think we've been taught that other people know, like you go to the doctor for them to tell you. And I think the difference between going to the doctor and maybe getting a tablet, or to okay, I've got this symptom, take this so this bit goes away. The difference between, I think, the way that you and I work is we are trying to advocate for our clients to get to the point where they ask themselves, and they know that themselves, and they get to the stage where they can say, oh no, I don't want to do that, I want to do this. And then I feel really, really joyful when my clients get to that point, or my yoga students get to that point, or my friends, or all of us, and we're all just grounded and in our bodies, happy.
But small things like going for, like when you feel something's off and you go for a blood test and you say to your GP, I really would like one, and your GP turns around and says, oh, you had one 6 months ago, you don't need another one. It's like, no, I want to. And being your own advocate, and that just makes me really frustrated, because keep going until you find the person that will listen to you, because there's so many stories that you read and that you hear of people that have terminal sickness or illnesses that, oh no, something's not right, and they keep going to the doctor, and they go to a specialist, and no, please, something's, and guess what? They're right. Something's not right. I've still got to keep digging. And I want people to use that voice. And just because someone's a medical professional, or just because someone is a holistic health coach, or because someone's something else, they may not be your person, but don't be afraid to use your voice. And if that person gets offended, they're not the right person. And like, if I'm working with a client and they'll say, no, I don't like that, Barbara, or I don't want to do that, it's nothing to do with me. It's like, no worries. Well, here's another 12 other things. Let's look at these 12 steps and see what we can do for you. And a health professional, especially a GP, shouldn't be any different. I agree. As we started this podcast today, you said, Barbara, a lot of clients come to me and I leave space for them and I listen to them and what they need. And that's the thing, is people are reaching out for help, and especially in the mental health space too, people are reaching out for help, and dismissing them. That takes so much courage to say to someone, I need help with my food, I need help with my health, I need help with my mental health. To have someone, a professional, say, oh, look, I'm booked out, or no, you'll be fine, or just take this tablet, or oh no, just you're just stressed, come back another time, like really dismissing you. It's just not okay. It's just you got to look after number one. It's not selfish. Find the right people for you.
Yeah, I agree with that. And my therapist, when I was going through my divorce, she said that to me. She said, it's not, selfish isn't necessarily a bad thing. We've been taught that it's a bad thing, but being selfish means you're looking after yourself. And at that point in my life, that really hit hard. And it was, oh, wow, okay, hang on. I don't think I've been paying attention. And so for me, when I'm being selfish is when I'm paying attention to myself and what it is that I need. And I think that's really important for people to feel empowered to do as well.
But it is work, and it, like you said, it's step by step. It's all, we all want the quick fix because we're human beings, and because most things in life there is a quick fix. I need something to eat straight away. I can go to my fridge and within 2 minutes I've got something to eat, or I can go pick up takeaways, or I can I've got pain, so I can take a tablet and it goes away. So we live in a lifestyle where something uncomfortable comes up for us, or something painful comes up for us, we can eat something, we can take something, we can block it out, we can do whatever. But the work is in sitting with yourself and going, where is this pain coming from? And then taking the steps one by one, because the first thing you try may not work. The sixth thing you might try may not work, and it's being consistent that I'm going to stick with this and keep going. And then getting the crap from other people. Like, so many people don't call eating healthy, even though back in the day I had to weigh my food and I ate a lot of protein and vegetables and stuff. But people are like, oh, what's wrong with you? You're not normal. Or people come around to my house and I've got no margarine or butter in my fridge, or I've got very limited foods. And they're like, what can you eat? I'm like, oh, you can make heaps of things. But if you were to come around to my house now and look in my fridge or look in my pantry, it's really easy to go, I've got no food. But I've got spices, I've got some fresh veggies, I've got a bit of meat, and that's all I've got. But, you know what I mean? I don't have this staple things of what most people do, and then people go, why don't you eat normal, or why don't you have, you know? And that's the culture that we're brought up in. And like, why don't you have a sausage barbecue, or you know? So I'm the weird one.
Yes, I know, I'm very much with you on that. Like, I'm the weird one in quite a lot of situations, and I think that's why it's also really vital that as part of the thing that I teach as well is like the community and the relationships. Because if you and you mentioned it about removing people from your life that maybe weren't serving you and were not good for you, is if you have people that surround you as well, which you'll find when you start to shift and you're starting to grow and learning about yourself, people will come into your life that also gravitate towards what you're doing, and you inspire each other. You know, like this conversation now, like this is a really nice conversation, and I feel really, I've never met you, you're on the other side of the world, but I feel very connected because we have things in common, and it feels nice. So if you do feel lonely, it's reaching out to people, and you do feel weird and you feel like the only person that's on this. That's why having people in your corner to listen to you, a health coach, people who are going through the same thing, a community of people who are maybe on the same path as you to exploration, is really, really important to your health, your well-being, and your journey, to help you with that consistency as well. Or, hang on, I feel a bit like this today, maybe someone else can give me the advice, like you said.
Yeah, and even when you're around people, the good people in your life, you're like, oh, I don't feel like drinking tonight, or I just want to eat some vegetables, or I want to go get takeaways. And either one of those conversations, people around you are like, cool, there shouldn't be oh, didn't you say you wanted to lose weight? Or didn't you say you only get to eat clean? Or didn't you say, oh, takeaways are bad for you, blah, blah, blah. So you've got to, you know, again, it's that word balance. Again, it's getting to that place of, but you sound like you've done kind of the same amount of work that I've done in different ways. And you got to that point in your life, you're like, I can't do this anymore. And it looked different, but I got to the point where I was like, I can't hate myself anymore. I'm sick of not liking my body. I'm sick of just the restrictions, but also living my life for other people, not living for what Barbara wanted to do. You know? And that's hard because I'm saying most people will block any of that out and just keep going to be comfortable and to be like, I don't want to sit with myself being quiet. I don't want to do what actually makes me happy, because I'll offend everyone around me.
Yeah. 100%. And it's having the resilience to keep stepping forward into every single day, right? What is it that I want? And being true to yourself, even in those uncomfortable moments, because it is much easier, like you said, to just be comfortable. But normally it's that other side of comfort. My mum always says to me, feel the fear and do it anyway. Like, just go for it, just do it. And you maybe sit on the precipice for so long, or you swing between the two things, and then when you jump, you're like, oh, it wasn't so scary. I can, even if there are a group of people doing X, Y, and Z around me, I can do me, and that's fine. And I'm comfortable with that. And I can honor what it is that I want in that moment. Like you said, whatever it might be in that moment.
Yeah. So as we wrap up this beautiful, amazing, I've loved having a chat with you today. And I know that we're going to talk again. It's such a great thing to talk about with. It's a holistic approach. It's what you eat. It's how you feel about yourself. It's how you move your body. So what's one, I always call it a golden nugget. What's one thing or one golden nugget that you'd like my listeners to know today as we wrap up, about maybe something someone shared with you once, maybe something your mum told you, or maybe something you've learned along this beautiful journey of yours? And thank you so much for sharing it with us. What's one thing you'd like other people to know?
It's hard to come up with one nugget, isn't it?
Oh, if you've got a couple.
I think one thing that I probably said a few times during this conversation is learning who you are. So taking the time to learn who you are and what it is that you need, but within that as well, not trying to do everything at once. And taking it a step at a time, and knowing that it is going to be a process. One piece of information that has always stuck with me. I had a conversation with someone before I went traveling to Australia, just after all of the stuff with my husband, and I was searching, I didn't know what to do, and she said, is this a today problem or a tomorrow problem? So in terms of mindset, in terms of anxiety, do I need to deal with it today, or can I deal with that tomorrow? And I kind of use that framework in everything that I do now, whether it's a decision about, something big, or if I've got anxiety or whatever it might be. So I utilize that one day at a time, giving myself that space and just tune in, start to learn who you are maybe before you do anything else. That's like 10 nuggets.
Yeah, it's a nugget pack. It's how many nuggets are in a nugget pack? 6, 12 or 24 pack?
Awesome. I'm gonna have to get better at succinctly saying stuff, but yeah.
No, it's absolutely perfect what you share with us then. And just your time in Italy is just something that, definitely I'd love to pick your brains more at a later date. And I think that's what they do really well, is there's no, from you living there right in the core of that kind of culture and lifestyle, did you see any form of restrictions that they had on their portion sizes, or how much wine they had, or any rules around food, just that you observed?
No, they definitely enjoy food and they don't really have they don't really have restrictions. They always maybe have wine, but they do it very differently. They drink very differently to how we do in the UK, for example. So the culture is very, very different. So they might be out with each other, but they might not necessarily be drinking really, really quickly, but they'll be enjoying the conversation and the surroundings. And I'm not saying that we don't enjoy the conversation or the surroundings in the UK, but there's a little bit more sway to let me drink a little bit more as opposed to enjoy the wine. Obviously there's nuances and people are different, but no, I didn't see lots of restrictions. People have a different mindset, I think. And a lot about community and food and being together. And I mean, I definitely couldn't keep up with them in portion size. especially at Christmas time. I was like, I just can't eat anymore.
Wow, but it would all be good quality foods. Everything that you said, so everything in front of you when you were living with your boyfriend's family, it was vegetables, pasta, a bit of meat, but all cooked really well and high quality ingredients.
Yeah, all high quality ingredients. I mean, latterly I have like less pasta and things like that. I couldn't have it necessarily every single day, me personally, but very, very high quality food. And they go out and they look and they understand like how 100 grams is this. I feel like eating this. So going to the supermarket or the fruit and vegetable stall and saying, today I want this. And I've always sort of been a little bit like that, when you go to the supermarket, instead of just going for your normal things, is actually pausing for a second and saying, well, what does my body fancy? What colour vegetable do I want? Do I want it to be green? Do I want it to be orange? Like, so if you're looking at all the peppers, instead of going for your favourite colour, like what one are you drawn to? And I kind of intuitively like to do that as well.
And do they shop daily? They don't shop for a big week. It sounds like they go every 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, they shop very fresh. Yeah. So, I mean, they might get, enough vegetables for sort of 3 days or something, but they'll always pop to get something or send somebody to get something, or, the basket's over the edge of the balcony bringing up the food, or...
Oh, I think I've been born in the wrong country. After having this chat with you, I think you
come and live over here.
I've been born in the wrong country.
Yeah, come over and I'll introduce you.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's definitely my next calling. But if people would love to know more about what you do as a holistic health coach, would like to know more about the type of programs that you have with your clients, whether it's just a reset or it's a full-on gut health program, or it's a lifestyle nutrition kind of plan that they're wanting to work with you, how can they find you and get in touch with you?
Absolutely. If they on Instagram, I'm still mainly on my @Trina O'Duffy account. So you can contact me on there, or my website is mycollectivecompass.com, which details all of the new programs. So I've still got my Trina O'Duffy website as well, but as you mentioned at the beginning, I've got a new company, so it's all sitting under My Collective Compass, because for me and my business partner, it's that collectiveness, that holistic journey, that everything is in one place, and we want to give you as much information and as many tools as possible. So head over to mycollectivecompass.com or @Trina O'Duffy.
Okay, and I'll put those in the show notes as well, so people listening can actually just click on that and go to your website straight away.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. And we're going to talk again. Like, literally, we could probably talk for hours.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating. But yeah, what a great journey you've been through so far. It's just incredible. And now you're over across the other side of the world, living with amazing people and amazing food, and it makes me so happy. So thank you for joining me today, sharing your story and what you do. And I know everyone's going to love it, and I know people will want to know more too. So we'll have a chat again.
Thank you. I'd love that. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and it has inspired you on your self-care journey. Please feel free to share this with a friend and subscribe over on Apple Podcast. I really love hearing your feedback. So guys, please feel free to write a review on Apple and let me know which part of this episode resonated with you the most. To fall in love with yourself is the first secret to happiness. To find out a bit more about Self-Care Studio or the Studio Chat podcast, head over to my Instagram page, self_care_studio, or on my website, selfcarebybarbarathomson.com.au. Really look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Look after you. And I'll catch you soon. Bye.